Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Getting Defensive brought to you by Gridiron Ratings. I am Craig Reith, and with us, as always, is the legend himself, fresh off another show just half hour or so ago, Gary, the IDP tipster. How you doing tonight, Gary?
I'm doing really good. I thought you was going to intro trip there. I really did.
I work my way around. I keep it fresh, switch it up to keep you on
Oh,
your
I
toes.
just meant on what you said, legend.
Well, it applies to both. So,
Yep.
and of course,
I do
you guys can
appreciate
tell
it.
here. Yeah.
Might be for
We
the
have,
wrong reasons, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, you were talking about your history on Twitter there. It looked like you like to start some fights back in the day, 4 or 5 years
with
ago.
I just got done with Shane Barrett on his. Yeah, I was quite the ass the first year or two I was on here. I burned some bridges that I've been able to repair some. I've just moved on from the others. So it's going to be interesting too, because I'm going to see I think I'm going to see some of these guys at the expo in Canton 2 weeks, the 15th. So it'll be like walking around. I'm going to wear my IDP tipster shirt, just keep to myself and hope nobody throws tomatoes at me.
Yeah, a bunch of Twitter analysts and alcohol in large quantities for lots of them. I'm sure there won't be any sort of problems.
Yeah, I'm going to pick my battles, and I think my battle is just to go between that noon to 4 on Sunday, when everybody's either hungover and don't feel like it or haven't started yet for the day. So hopefully everybody will be able to control themselves. I apologize, people.
Well, as Gary mentioned, we have a guest with us from the Thursday show. Trip is with us tonight. How are you doing tonight, Trip?
Doing well, Craig. Appreciate the chance to be here. It's good to see you all again. We were just podcasting about 3 weeks ago, the three of us. So good to be back talking football with y'all. And I won't be in Canton, but I'll try hard to lay low and not get any tomatoes thrown at me on the bird app.
Yeah, I'll leave a mark.
Sounds like fun. I got to try it one of these years.
All right.
Yeah, I won't be there this year either with the new kid. The ultimate decision was it'd probably be unwise to leave the wife with a newborn and 4 others.
For
a weekend of fun.
So all right, poorly. That's right.
Right. You get that newborn, you're staying home.
We have a few items to cover tonight, just in terms of news. I'm going to go over each of them and see if you guys want to comment on any of them here. Justin Houston signed a 1-year, $4 million deal to sort of serve as veteran depth. Likely, but we'll see. He may end up starting 2 for the Ravens there. Clelin Ferrell is reported to be behind Solomon Thomas, Yannick Ngakoue, and Max Crosby to start. So his little improvement towards the end of the year last year doesn't seem at the moment to have carried into the early parts of camp. And then troubled former first-round pick Jeff Gladney for the Vikings was indicted on felony assault charges and has been since cut from the team. So we'll go to you first, your Trip. If any one of these gives you initial gut reaction that you want to talk about, have at it.
Well, I'm sad for Clelin Ferrell because I'm a Clemson homer. I'm disappointed to see that he's fallen behind, but it was just the oddest draft pick a couple of years ago when he was picked 4th overall, and the Raiders brass were like, aha, we know something you don't. And everybody's like, well, why didn't you just trade down?
Right. Was it Maylock? Was that a Maylock?
Yeah, I think that might have been his first draft with the Raiders. But they pick up Ngakoue, a big free agent dollars, and Crosby looks like I think he's shown to me he's flashed enough that I believe that he has real NFL upside on the edge, and so they got 2 guys. I think the one thing that's worth noting is that we'll see Gus Bradley install some 50 fronts, and they'll play 3 edges out there a good bit. I think there's a chance that Ferrell could earn snaps as the big end in that 50 front and still be relevant NFL player. I don't think he has any chance of being relevant in fantasy. So I think that most folks have probably kind of accepted that over the last couple of years, and maybe at least certainly not paying anything up for him in trades or anything like that. But I think that's it. I think that the news out of camp just kind of confirms what folks kind of anticipated when the Ngakoue signing happened.
Yeah. All I can say about that one is I apologize, folks, that there were actually people out here promoting him as the next coming of a great defensive end in fantasy football. I did not agree. I was avoiding him and trying to tell people to avoid him from the get-go when he was drafted. And here, for his professional career, maybe they move him inside, take that big body. He's not. He's just not producing. He's not getting the job done where he's at. So they need to do something, because they've not really had a pass rush. They're kind of like the Jets have been. They haven't had a really good pass rush in quite some time, and that matters. So swing and a miss.
Alrighty.
Well, I guess the one that I actually wanted to hit on really well was, or say something about, was Justin Houston. I actually like that, considering they only have a rookie on there now. I can't remember. I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name to begin with. He profiles as a good guy to have. Dynasty wise, these pass rushers come out. We didn't have a great class of DL edge rushers or that type of outside linebackers this year and rookies. So I'm not suggesting anybody go running after him to get him for a redraft. But for Dynasty, nice little stash. I wish I could remember his name. Maybe you can help me out there, Craig.
Odafe Owe.
Yeah, that's him. So, but I mean, other than that, I mean, you had McPhee, Ferguson, just the same old thing. So the one advantage for Baltimore is that they usually are in the top three in blitzing. On the amount of times that they blitz, the amount of guys they blitz, they'll bring 4, 5 sometimes. They love to blitz, and that was actually how Judon probably produced as well as he did just 2 years ago. He fell off last year. Those other people were absorbing those sacks that they were getting. They did get less last year, I believe, too. But either way, I think Houston, as much as he's probably going to be sent to get after the quarterback, it's not bad from a pro perspective. I think he can still get into the backfield and put pressure. Whether he's going to be able to complete a sack or not is in probably some form of rotation. I don't know. I'm not suggesting anybody run out and get him, but it is an interesting situation to look at. He wasn't getting it done with next to Buckner. I think it's a 50-50 shot of what Houston's got left in the tank.
Well, that's the issue, right? He's just, how much does he have left in the tank? He's a good player for a long time. He started to slow down a little bit last year. And now he steps into a situation, like you said, at a deep rotation. The two edges out there are going to be Tyus Bowser at Sam, who they signed to an extension, who no one's paying attention to. If you're in a true IDP league, then that'd be a great guy to land on, in my opinion. I think he'll lead the edge group in snaps. But I think Houston steps into the rushbacker spot with a rotation with McPhee and with Owe. And it's hard to imagine that he could be relevant. It's like, why? I suppose he could have a second win, but to me, you spend a first-round pick on Owe. You get him out there, you develop him, you see what you got with him. And Houston is the veteran depth. He can come in and help the team. He reached out to them, is the way the news went, and that he just wanted to play there. So, and I saw something on the Bird app that he might get 600 snaps. I would be shocked if that happened. I think he comes in there, plays a couple hundred rotational snaps with those other guys, and he contributes maybe in the locker room, winning culture, and something like that. And the other thing too is that he should be switched to linebacker if you're in a conventional position league, because Baltimore runs a nominal 3-4.
Right. And that's going to mean barely nothing unless the really sack heavy format or something. And he really gets to go off. Hey, he's a veteran presence, and they've got that rookie that I'm not going to say his name again. And this is what you need when you got a rookie. You need somebody. I don't know. McPhee has been okay over the years. He's a backup. So I think he had one decent season where you got to start, but he's not. So Justin Houston brings a lot to the plate for a rookie to learn from. They usually come out, they got one or two good moves that they could pull in the college level just by beating them athletically. So there's a whole nother ball game that he's got to learn, and Justin Houston will probably do that for him. Show him the ropes.
Yeah, if you're in a big play specific league and it's a deep league, he could have value there because I still think when he's on the field, he'll get to the quarterback. I just don't think he's going to be playing as much as he had. To your guys' point, it's not like he's learning a new position. He did that for a long time when he was with the Chiefs. So it's sort of like your guys said, a depth signing where if they need him to go out there in certain situations, I still think he can be productive for him. But if they're expecting a year-long thing, I'm thinking they're probably going to be a little bit disappointed.
And it's sad that I thought that news was the best out of what we had to talk about. I care less about a cornerback, and I also care less about Farrell. I need to back on Farrell real quick. You know what's kind of worse about him getting demoted is who he's being demoted by. Those aren't elite athletes to me when it comes to Crosby or I'm not going to pronounce Yaganagi's name or whatever it is. I'm going to hack it up, but I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. But I mean, it's not like they're elite guys. They're just guys. They'll probably be a little bit better than they have been, but I think that says a lot about Farrell. He's just not got it done. I'm done.
I think Ngakoue is going to be the best out of them. I mean, he showed, and he's been a weird few past couple of years here with the whole leaving Jacksonville, going to Minnesota for a couple games, and then he went to Baltimore. And, he still had, despite the turmoil, 8 sacks last year. He can get to the quarterback, and I think he'll be the best out of the bunch, which in turn I think will help Crosby because Crosby's issue had been, he had that great breakout year where people weren't expecting it out of him, and then people sort of paid attention more to him because there wasn't a whole lot else last year. So I think it helps both of them. Solomon Thomas is another older guy that they can use across that defensive line. Just doesn't look good for Farrell, like you guys said.
When it comes to, I ain't going to say his name again, Yakuanaga, right?
Okay.
Ngakoue. When it comes to him, my problem is that, he can get after the quarterback, but he's not one to collect those tackles. So, I mean, it doesn't do you much good if you're only getting 30 tackles, maybe 6 or 7. That makes you a low deal too in my book. Serviceable maybe. He's kind of, I'd like if he's going to do it, if he's going to be their guy, he was known before in Jacksonville. That's why Jacksonville kind of went the way they went with him, is that, he could get after the quarterback, and he had a good season with them, I think 2018 or something, or no, 2017. He actually took a step back, I think, in 2018, if I remember right. Don't quote me. But either way, I don't think his ceiling in his tackles is even near being where it has to be for us to be talking about a top 10 edge rusher, top 15 maybe. He's going to have to want to tackle besides get the sack. I remember watching some film on him a few years ago, and he had a little Olay to his step sometimes. If it just, I don't know. I've never been that impressed with him. Put it that way.
Fair enough. Like you said, he doesn't get a whole lot of tackles, so if you're in a sort of a balanced format, it does sort of lower his ceiling. Yeah. And I did want to give a shout out to Jeff. Yes, Jeff, we see your comments over there in the chat. I don't know that your pronunciations are going to help Gary a whole lot.
No,
but, keep trying, Jeff. It's all right.
I'm going to get me a little tape recorder and have it pre-done so I go
yeah, just play it for it.
Yeah, right.
Well, the other thing we want to touch on here just for a bit, we have the first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game this Thursday going on. We have the Cowboys and the Steelers, and we just wanted to give you a couple things to pay attention to look for in that game if you're looking at it from an IDP perspective. So, Tripp, what sort of things are you looking for from either team in this game on Thursday?
Well, I'm interested to see what they bring out on defense, and obviously, this being a defensive podcast, but what's been fascinating about the Cowboys all offseason is they have invested so much at the linebacker position and so little at the other positions. It's what's happening, and so who comes out where I think is going to be very interesting for Dallas at the linebacker spot. And so there's been a lot of camp buzz or a lot of media buzz about Micah Parsons' usage and talking about how he's rushing the passer a lot. And so it's to the point where I'm starting to worry that he's going to be stuck at Sam. So I would be reassured if he would show up on the first play of the Hall of Fame game and be lined up at Mike. So that would make me feel a lot better, because if he's going to be one of these guys like Kyle Van Noy was in 2018 or whatever, he was spending half his time on the edge and half his time in the middle, well, that's a killer. You can't do anything with that. And certainly not in a conventional position, IDP league. You're stuck. And so I want to see him at Mike. And then what's interesting is who's alongside him then, because the word out of camp has been that it's been Van Der Esch at will, which is interesting. What that means then is that Van Der Esch switched back to will, which is where he had played under Marinelli a couple of years ago. And now in the last year, they tried to put him at Mike, and he has taken to the media to excoriate Mike Nolan, the last year's defensive coordinator, saying that wasn't a fit for him. It's kind of fascinating. He's 6'3", 260, and he can't freaking take on a blocker in the middle, but that's what he's telling us. He wants to run and chase, so he's going to be playing. Probably not 260, but he's close, and he's going to be out there with the Micah Parsons. Is I guess the suggestion. So where does Jalen Smith fit? And then of course there's still Keanu Neal, and a lot of people saw that signing. They paid Keanu Neal $5 million to come over to Dallas, and the coaches announced that he's a linebacker. And people are like, what? Wait, what do you pay if you're the Joneses? What are you doing paying a backup linebacker $5 million? And there were some IDP heads that said, "Oh, no, we don't believe it. We just think he'll play strong safety." Well, everything that the beat writers are reporting from what they're seeing at the practice field is that he is in fact playing will, and that Donovan Wilson and DeMonte Kazee are the starting safeties. So it'll be interesting to see if we can confirm that on the field on Thursday night as well. So are Jalen Smith and Keanu Neal really backup linebackers in Dallas? And we won't have a census of rotation from one preseason game, especially with it being the Hall of Fame game. It's possible that the starters won't play, but I'm really eager to see where these guys line up in the second level. And then on the first level, you have if Parsons is playing a lot of edge, well, then that affects DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory, because I think the conventional wisdom is those two guys are your starting defensive ends. And they're both pretty interesting in my mind if they do get the vast majority of snaps at that spot. And Randy Gregory is a guy that no one's paying attention to. He actually looked pretty good last year. I know, Craig, you wrote a blurb on your side about him too. After people stopped paying attention to the Cowboys about mid-season last year, after Dak got hurt and after the defense was obviously bad, people lost interest. But what happened early in the season is Aldon Smith came in, played like a man with his hair on fire, and seemed to hit a rookie wall, so to speak, because he hadn't been on an NFL field in so long. And Randy Gregory came in behind him, and Randy Gregory played well in that defense too. And so there's a chance with playing that Leo designated pass rusher role in Dan Quinn's defense that Randy Gregory could be impactful for big play leagues. And so where Micah Parsons comes out and plays on Thursday night could tell us a lot about what to expect for the Cowboys for the coming season here. And so I'm eager to see that.
That's a lot of Jalen Smith owners running to the trade block right now, right?
A lot of that, you, Gary?
Yeah, including me. No, actually, I'm. If that happens, I'm not looking into it that hard this early in the off season. Let's talk week 4. I guess they're playing 4 preseason games this year, right?
Cowboys will, yeah.
So, right. Okay. So, I'm not so sure how this is going to work out, but I don't think Jalen Smith will be the one that's out in the cold. I think right now they're putting those two in. They want to give Parsons the expectation of what he could do. You got to get him acclimated with the team. What happens if they do need him there? I think that they have a lot of intentions of having Parsons rushing, just like you had mentioned, Trip. So it's just a fingers crossed right now that I just hope it's one of those cab things. Or seeing what Van Der Esch and they're going to do on the inside, and in the end, I think Smith is there. The one thing that really makes me think that Jalen Smith won't be on the sideline is the fact that Jerry Jones handpicked him, paid him. He's like one of his cowboy guys. So maybe that'll hold true. I've not seen him. He did it with what was the strong safety they had? Heath Heath for all those years, just mediocre dude. He got exposed quite a few times, but he was there year in, year out, and he kept playing. And I think he's one of those Jerry Jones guys. It's the only thing I can come up with in my head. It's not like Jerry called and said, "Yeah, I really like Jeff." You know what I mean? I'm just saying. I just think that he's got his guys, and he's going to make sure they're in there. And if Jerry Jones says, "Hey, this is happening," I think Dan Quinn says, "Okay." But we'll see. We'll see how this. I call it. It's kind of like Camp Darlings. That's a broader. It might not just be one person. It's a situation. They got to get him in there running with the first unit. They got to see what Van Der Esch can do. And I'm with you on the Van Der Esch. It's discouraging that big old dude can't stop a run at the middle linebacker position. There were some problems there last year. So, all right.
Well, jump over to the Steelers for a minute. It'll be a little shorter on them. The one interesting piece of news that's come out in the last couple of weeks is that Melvin Ingram has been picked up and signed off the street to play in the pass rush rotation. And so he's a guy that I do think has a little bit left in the tank, maybe a little bit more than Justin Houston. And so I'm interested to see how that affects Alex Highsmith. We know that TJ Watt will be out there boatload of snaps and will continue to be productive. And so there's some folks that really like Highsmith. I thought he was okay. I didn't think he was primed to come in and play 850 snaps on the edge for the Steelers this year. And so when they signed Ingram, I didn't need to move him up my dynasty ranks because that's kind of what I thought would happen. They would find someone. So, but the question is, how much does he cut into Highsmith? Does he play ahead of Highsmith? I guess I'd be a little surprised by that. I would guess that they would bring in Ingram as a rotational guy. It'll be hard to get a sense in one preseason game as to how the rotation affects him. So the important thing to check the box on there is that Highsmith does in fact start. So not a ton to be learned there, but be worth watching. And then the second piece of news is that if you're in a quarterback required league, Mike Hilton was a useful cornerback, and I think he was a CB2 playing from the slot in the Steelers. And the reason why is because he was blitzing a lot, and there were a couple of games where he was significantly impactful in the offensive backfield. And so I was keeping an eye on who's backfilling for him because Hilton signed a free agent contract with the Bengals, and the answer is Antoine Brooks. Antoine Brooks had a safety designation last year, though, so it'll be interesting to see if that's updated on those platforms or if people are sleeping on this. So Antoine Brooks is a guy that played both some of the box in college and in the slot, and so he's a guy that could really be interesting from an efficiency standpoint. The question is, does he play enough snaps as the nickel in that defense? And one of the other outstanding questions, well, who's the outside cornerback? And that's still to be determined. Right now, it's looking like a guy by the name of James Pierre, and if I recall correctly, he's a UDFA. So it's the one of the things that's fascinating about the Steelers defense is that the whole team is thought of as being really good. Well, they have a handful of stars and then a lot of holes, and it's that cornerback spot being an example of that. Offensive line, of course, too, and then the middle linebacker spot. I think that people thought that when Vince Williams was signed back that he just resumes his role. Well, nope. He's gone. He's retired. Robert Spillane is a guy that if you're in a super deep league, I think you throw a dart on him. I'd be awfully surprised if he was full-time, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what kind of deployment he gets here in the first preseason game too. If he's out there as often as Devin Bush, that's worth watching. Again, it's not a lot to learn. There's not as much to learn here on the Steelers side of the ball as there is on the Cowboys in my mind.
No. Is there any? So we don't have any camp reports of who's playing that Vince Williams position?
Oh, it is Spillane. Yeah, it's been Spillane.
Is he doing it? Okay.
Spillane's been playing ahead of Vince Williams the whole time. People just been sleeping on that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any of those trip your trigger one way or the other, Gary?
What's that?
Any of those really interest you at all?
Well, I was never impressed with Highsmith last year when he got the chance. I mean, I just can't remember. I guess I didn't really pay full attention to him, but it's not surprising to me they brought in Mark Ingram, probably some rotation, like a Schwager or
Ryan Shazier.
Yeah, Shazier. Yeah, and at the same time, I was cracking up the other day when I had seen, and this is, I'm sorry, folks, I'm not picking a fight again. This isn't the early part of but folks, Tuitt broke out last year, so quit calling him a breakout candidate this year. Thank you.
All right. Well, we are going to get into the main topic here for the time we have left tonight. It's going to be one of the old getting defensive throwbacks. It's one of the on the clock type segments, but it's with a twist here. We are going to be using the updated, as of a couple days ago, sleeper IDP ADP, and we're going to be looking at deep cuts. The past 2 weeks here, we've sort of looked at the top 100 for guys that we felt were overvalued and undervalued. So the first one here, we're going to look at some linebackers that are farther down on the list here. And I'm going to give you guys where they're falling in their linebacker position. We do have these split out using the sleeper official position. So the defensive lineman hybrids with the linebackers are not mixed in with the linebackers, or the defensive linemen, we're leaving those separate. And we'll make note of that if we get into those. But to start off here, we have Jamie Collins going at 384.7. which is linebacker 49. Right ahead of him is Krys Barnes, 384.3, linebacker 48. And then through this in here, we'll see if he bites on it. Ernest Jones, 397.8, linebacker 51. So, Gary, you're laughing. So, yep, I threw that in there for you, but we'll see if that's the way you go. Which of these three guys in the same area are you taking this year?
I'm a huge Ernest Jones fan. Now I am far from a rookie guy. They're luxuries, folks. Don't plan on him to be in your starting lineup. But this deep, looking at Collins, looking at Krys Barnes, I like Barnes. I like Collins. But I think at this point that if these are the guys that are on the board, I've already got my starting unit, or pretty much got my starting unit, depending how many we're looking at. I'm swinging the fence on Ernest Jones, knowing that I'm going to get at least another quarterback here or another linebacker a little bit farther in the draft, But I'm swinging at this point at these numbers at 49, 48, and 51. If this actually happened, I would go with Ernest Jones. Just a swing for the fence. I think he's way better than Kizer, and I think that there's a lot of points that everybody was expecting Kizer to absorb last year, taking over for Littleton. I really think that at least the last that I seen out of camp was that Jones was the guy. He was going to get every opportunity to. It was his to lose. So, when you think about the whole situation with their drafting him last year. They took him at third, basically their first, and they had very little draft capital, and they haven't drafted an inside linebacker since this new regime's been there, as far as I know. They deal with like fifth rounders, sixth rounders. Corey Littleton, I believe, was a free agent. Right. So it's just, I'd go for the fence. What about you, Trip?
I actually like all three of these guys at ADP. I don't know where sleepers get their ADP from, but man, these are great values.
Well, I can tell you, this is their official stuff. So that's we talk about this at times too, folks. The ADP, you've got to realize. So we're sitting here talking about this, but a lot of people get out here. This is made up by however many 100,000, 200,000 people. I think that when we talked to Sleeper, or Jeff, the Gridiron Ratings founder, had a conversation with him. I believe he still does. When we were talking to him, it's only like 17% or something of their leagues overall, or even have IDP. Right. So you've got a vast majority. You got to figure there are a lot of people that don't quite know who these guys are, or so they're it's really sporadic. You ought to seen the official sleeper a month ago, Trip, when they first started doing this.
Yeah.
Stuff
in June was really bad.
It was just so off. It was like Jamal Adams might have been number one overall. I can't remember what it was. You know what I mean? It was terrible. There were a few names in the top 10 that you were just, they were low tier 2 dudes, maybe tier 1 or tier 3 guys, But either way, just letting you know.
I got you.
Yeah, that's just mentioned. It is official, so it's just it is. There's where we take our advantage, folks. This is why we're doing this, is to explain to you that likely if we were to look at the overall, if these guys are going that far down, knowing what I've already seen on, which I have it in front of me, so I should probably look. There are probably players before these three that shouldn't have even been drafted yet. Or these guys should have been off the board earlier.
Yeah. I'm in a draft and sleeper right now, so I pulled the phone up here, and they got Vinny Testaverde and Mark Sanchez ahead of Tyrod Taylor, and so I'm, all right, I'll see how that goes for you, folks.
So we were told they cleaned up the IDP pool of players, but they didn't do it when it come to the offense. So they're still. Oh, well, you just said it, Sanchez. Give me some Sanchez over Collins, please.
That's right. That's right. We need another butt fumble. Like, if you get 200 points for butt fumble, you get a draft from Mark Sanchez.
Oh, come on, sleeper. I was just getting some faith in you this year. Please.
I'll jump back on these linebackers. I think about a guy out of this, and I like all these guys at value here. I'll take Krys Barnes. And really the reason why is because I don't have a handle on exactly what the Packers defense are going to do in terms of the dime versus nickel ratio. And, they have for the last several years played all dime. They don't have the same defensive coordinator, so it's nothing to go on. My guess would be that Devondre Campbell comes in and plays like a proverbial 2-down role, and that Krys Barnes is the 3-down guy. And so I think he's pretty interesting there because I think that he will be able to play in a defense which will now allow him to continue to collect tackles at a high efficiency, not unlike Blake Martinez did a couple of years ago. He won't not quite that efficient, but I think he could do 13-14% efficiency, whereas you expect more like 12 for kind of on an average for a off-ball linebacker. So these other guys, I like them. I think Ernest Jones has a good chance to win that the middle linebacker role there in LA with possibly Traven Howard as the kind of the will of the coverage backer. So he's interesting because I feel confident that Barnes is the starter. I don't feel as confident that Jones is. I'd take Barnes ahead of Jones. I also kind of like Collins. I think this is a good value too. I think he steps in as the coverage backer in the Detroit defense and plays a role not terribly dissimilar from Demario Davis in the Saints defense. And our
latest report on them right now was that former Saints Alonzo, he played a backup role or a part-time role. Yeah, him and Collins were running, the last I seen, which might have been a day or so ago, were running running in that defense as the starters, which was funny because we're in that one Johnny the Greek has the huge IDP thing we were just talking about this morning on an IDP dime drop, a huge league going for IDP, and I got him like in the 19th round or something, Alonzo. So actually found value there. But either way, I was all happy. Enough about me. I apologize. Go right
our man Jeff DiMatteo, I was on a pod with him a couple weeks back on the IDP Nation pod, and he was stumping for Alex Anzalone as the full-time player, and as opposed to Jamie Collins, which I thought was an interesting take. And I have Anzalone in quite a few leagues, so
I wonder where you might have heard that.
Never can tell.
Yeah, I've had Alonzo on a roster since February.
Yeah, I scooped him up everywhere he's on waivers too when he got the sign with Detroit. Just the warm body principle.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Jeff appears to be the one taking Luck, Testaverde, and Sanchez over Tyrod Taylor. So I don't know how much of his advice you want to be taking here. Tyrod, at least we think he'll be playing. So, all right. Well, we'll move on.
I forgot Jeff's listening. Jeff told me about him. I didn't say. I didn't. No clue.
We'll move on to our second one here, going back to the defensive backs. Jordan Whitehead, DB 43 at draft position 400. Adrian Amos of the Packers, 387.8, which is DB 41. And Grant Delpit, 386.9, DB 40. We'll start with you this time, Trip. Which of these guys sort of excites you more than the others, if any?
I'm on a roll with Jordan Whitehead out of this group. And the reason why is because the Buccaneers play aggressively. Whitehead's a strong safety. He of the two, Whitehead and Antoine Winfield. Whitehead is a guy that's more often playing in the box. He has been an adequate score position. If you've had him in your second safety or third DB spot last couple of years, he's been okay. So that's the guy that I would go with. I think that Delpit is still coming off that Achilles, and so I don't even know if he's a starter at this point. I wouldn't. That's not a guy I'd be taking at all in redraft. Amos, I think, is going to get stuck in more two deep looks, and I think that's going to hurt his production from where he's been the last couple of years. I think he's a player. I just think that the defense will be a little bit more conservative, and I would settle for the safety and the more aggressive scheme.
I'm trading my pick. No, I guess it's deep. It is deep. I would have to agree with Tripp. Whitehead is just as good as any. At least he's probably going to be a good bye-week play or matchup play for me. None of them are going to be my top two choices so in my starting lineup. But definitely not Delphi.
Yeah, Delpit, to your point, Tripp, I don't know if he's going to start because, like you said, coming off injury, they got Ronnie Harrison back who played well for him towards the end of last year, and then they went out and spent big money to get John Johnson III, who you know is going to start. So coming off an injury with an unclear role, even this deep, I'd be staying away from Delpit. If it was Dynasty and you could get him this late.
Yeah, maybe, his second year, right?
Yeah, he didn't play at all last year. It's really his first year then. So
a big old question mark.
All right. Defensive lineman moving along here. We have Daron Payne at 398.3, lineman 27. Josh Sweat of the Eagles, 396.3, right ahead of him at 26. And then the much troubled Frank Clark, 391.9, which is defensive lineman 25. Gary, I'm sure you're not overly excited about any of these guys this deep either, but who do you like out of those?
For some reason, I'm picturing a blurb about Payne getting either hurt or put on the COVID list.
COVID
list. All right. Well, Josh Sweet is behind Barrett and Graham. Frank Clark, I don't know. He's been a complete void for me for a couple of years. I've never understood his ADP in the past. I've always ranked him a little lower. He had his upside. It never came out. I'd probably go Payne. I probably would just go ahead and go with Payne. And if this was a dynasty league, I might think about Josh Sweet. But I think I'd just go with the production in a redraft for Payne. Just maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised he's actually that low, to tell you the truth. I have him a little bit higher up on my board. I mean, he's going to be playing next to Josh Allen, and he has, you have Chase Young, then you have the other Sweet, Montez Sweet, right? So that Lions is formidable, a lot more formidable, could work in Payne's benefit. I think he had a good year last year. So I would definitely think I'd take Payne.
So this is a good example of why I take defensive lineman first of the three IDP positions, because I don't like any of this, man. This is junk. If you got a defensive tackle required league, then yeah, Payne's a good pick. But without it being defensive tackle required, you're just kind of taking a hit at that spot every week relative to what somebody else has. Sweat, I don't dislike Sweat. I think he could be an interesting dart throw, but at 20 DL 26, that seems rich to me. I would just take Clark. Hope he stays on the team. Hope he avoids legal trouble somehow. And if he doesn't, you cut him. It opens up a roster spot for somebody else after week 1 or whatever.
Yeah, Payne is interesting because he has been like crazy consistent. I mean, it's 3 years in the league where you basically know what you're going to get with him. 5, 2, and 3 sacks, 6, 3, 7 tackles for a loss, 56, 56, and 54 combined tackles.
Yeah,
35,
that would
32,
basically
27.
be.
So
I would think
that
it would basically be. I mean, why is he at 27? I guess that's total DL. When I'm thinking DT, I'm thinking DT. I usually like playing those. So this is my first year of ever playing on Sleeper. Yeah. So the other day when we was going through and we was making these tipsters leagues, I've always played on other leagues. I've helped a huge amount of people that play on Sleeper because they didn't know Vinny or Mark Sanchez still played. So, and some of those guys, and I've helped a lot of people how to make me co-owners, and I go in and I can search everything, but never had I draft, never had I commissioned. I played on Sleeper about 4 or 5 years ago and hated it. Now I'm starting to come around. I'm starting to understand it. Well, if those people are the ones that are asking me the questions all the time, then this is where I should focus. So I'm moving over to that. So it's an all new experience. So not having a defensive tackle, I hate not having defensive individual players, on the team or at the positions to play. So, but Payne, yeah, at least I'm not going to take a 0 if I'm sticking him in there. I think that I'm confident enough. I don't take a fat 0 if he's a bye week or something like that. But technically, in some other leagues, he would be a top 10 ranked defensive tackle probably.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go with one more here because we're getting close to our cutoff time. We're going to go to that sort of edge position, the defensive lineman, linebacker eligible guys here at the bottom. And it really isn't the bottom of these types of guys, but as far as this list we're going off of, number 24, lineman, linebacker, Matt Judon, 365. Jadeveon Clowney, 374.7, which is your number 25 ranked, and then Rashan Gary, the Packers, 395.2, 26 of those guys. Trip, which one of those do you like out of that 3-man group?
I actually kind of like all those guys a little bit. It's an interesting group and kind of a tough call for me. I think I would probably roll with Clowney in redraft, and the reason why is I feel confident that he will both be in a prime pass rushing role and will have a lot of snaps for the Browns. So I like Gary. I like Gary's upside. If I would look to get him coming back around in the next round. And I like Judon for, I think, a high floor in the Patriots defense. But Clowney, I think a lot of people are pooping on Clowney these days. I think he is a good player. I don't think he's great. I mean, he's never going to live up to that 101, but that selection that he was selected at a few years ago, but he's consistently every year in the top 20 in pressures per game. He was last year, even with the Titans, which nobody knows because he didn't get a sack during that time. He just gets dinged for not getting a sack. He's an effective run defender. He'll collect tackles for you in the Cleveland defense, and they're not going to blitz a lot. It's going to be up to him and Garrett to bring the pressure. And he's going to be responsible for cleaning up his own messes up there. I think that he's in for a bounce back year. He's a guy that I've been stumping for on pods for a few weeks now.
Yep. I would be happy to have Clowney on my squad over either one of the other two. Same thing as Tripp. I look at it this way. I think Clowney's still only like 26, 27 years old. He's not that old. So in the right system, I think he's got some break or bounce back potential. And if Oliver could do it over the last couple of years with Garrett on the opposite side of him, I think Clowney shouldn't have any problems at all. So I actually think Clowney will be a little bit better personally. I like what they got going on in Cleveland. I think this is the best opportunity. Matt Judon, I got to agree with what you said about his ceiling, but it's still a question mark at this point, I think. And then Gary, I don't know. We need to see him on the field.
Yeah, Clowney would be my guy here too for the reasons you guys went over. The other thing that sometimes I like to look at with these guys is motivation. He's on a 1-year contract. He went to a position where he's going to be in a spot up to Garrett to, not be the focal point in terms of when you're looking at pass rushers. So great spot. He wants to go get that last contract because he's going to be 29 next season.
Oh,
he's 28
so
this year. So,
okay.
If he doesn't perform, he's going to probably be on another 1-year deal. So he's looking for a payday. He went to a team where he can try to get the production. So for this year, yeah, I certainly like where Clowney's at.
Yeah, 28 is not that old. He's a little beat up, though, but it's not that old. Aaron Donald was 32, something like that. J.J. Watt. Some of these guys can last. They can keep it up. I think.
Yeah, some of them can. Clowney, I don't think he's going to be playing that effectively that well, just with the injury that he's had. And it's a shame because, like Tripp had said, he could never live up to just how he was foreseen to be in the NFL. Just, this top-end player just wasn't meant to be with his body holding up and then where he went and how he was used and just wasn't
he didn't actually sign in prime positions or prime opportunities, I guess you could say. What was he with Seattle, and then he went to Titans, and it was that's not like actually like the hotbed of pass rushers altogether in a way, right?
Yeah, and he kept bouncing around between positions, and the first year he barely played. It was a lot of just weird stuff working against him.
No.
But that's going to about do it for us tonight here as we've reached our limit. Reminder, if you're watching us over on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. Make sure you have us subscribed and that notification bell on so you can see whenever we're going live. You can find all of us below on Twitter. Twitter handles are down there, so make sure you are signed into Twitter and keeping an eye out for notifications from Gary and Tripp. And then make sure you head over to Gridiron Ratings for their subscription contest. Gary, do you know about how close they are?
I think we were sitting at, I think we need like 20 more. We just gave away one, so I think we need about 20 more. And we'll be giving away another 2021 Gridiron Ratings Draft Playbook. It's always up to date. It's a PDF, folks. Check it out. You can win one. Real easy. Just go subscribe.
It's that simple, folks. So from all of us here tonight, that's going to about do it. Gary, any last words?
Nope. Other than goodbye.
Tripp?
Good night. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.